All right, so it's an overcast day here in Placerita Canyon, although the app on my phone says the sun will be coming out. It doesn't look like it to me, but we'll see. So definitely a challenging day because there's no light. Also, the creek, which I'm standing in the creek bed here, is completely dry. So there's no water to work with. So today's going to be a challenge, but sometimes I look at days like this as just an opportunity to experiment, so we'll see what happens. One option is to paint looking in this direction, but this does not look too inspiring. Also, if the sun does come out, it will be just above that hill there, so it'll be sort of blinding. This is looking in the other direction. I think this is a little more inspiring. Also, if the sun comes out, I know from experience there'll be some nice shadows and also a variety of colors in the trees. I'll be painting over an old painting on a 12 by 16 inch panel, and I'll be using my usual limited palette of colors. I've thinned some burnt sienna with odorless mineral spirits, just experimenting with shapes. The lightest values are the sky and the creek bed. Starting with the creek bed, I've got a mixture here of titanium white and yellow ochre. Hold up the brush to compare it to the scene, and I'm feeling like I need to add a little bit of purple. So I mixed up a purple using ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and I add this to my mix, and that looks a lot closer. Usually I paint from dark to light, but since my panel is sort of a mid-tone due to the fact that I'm painting over an old painting, I am going to start with my light shapes first, and then I will work towards the darks. So I'm mainly focusing on shape, and I do like this shape right here. There is a bit of light up here as well. All right, I've got a green here I mixed up using ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow medium. There's a shrub over here to the left, so I'm gonna put that in. Again, keeping the shape very simple. And now I've added some cadmium yellow medium and a bit of alizarin crimson. This tree here is a bit warmer in temperature. And at this point, I'm not really that concerned about getting accurate colors and values. I just want colors that are approximate, but that also allow me to define the different shapes. So I want all of the trees or all of the greens to be slightly different. And then once I cover the whole panel, then I'll be a bit more specific with my colors. This tree has a bit of green down here as well. This tree on the right is a little bit bigger, and I want to leave some sky holes in the tree so it doesn't seem too dense. Sky holes are essential when painting trees. It just makes them seem more realistic. If we block in trees and leave no sky holes, the trees often just look flat and pasted on. They don't look three-dimensional. As usual, I'm using the shapes I'm seeing as inspiration, but I am making changes to hopefully improve the composition. So I'm looking for irregular and interesting shapes. So notice the side of this tree right here. In reality, it's more straight up and down the edge of this tree, which is less interesting. Overcast days like this are perfect for experimentation, especially experimenting with shapes and composition and color too, because the color does not change because the light is flat and stable. So even though it's more difficult to get a dynamic and successful painting on a gray day, it is actually a more pleasurable painting experience usually than painting in the direct sun or when it's hot. Okay, stepping back, and I like those shapes. I'll get rid of that one. I can add more sky holes and probably will, but that's a good starting point. I do mix all my own greens. I don't have any greens on my palette and never have actually. I've tried using sap green before just because somebody gave me a tube because they didn't really like it, and I experimented with it and it didn't work for me either. There's nothing wrong with having greens on your palette. I just enjoy mixing greens. Maybe I'll have this green shape come under a little bit for now. right, so there's some dead grass in the foreground here that's kind of a orangish color. And as usual, I am squinting at the scene to throw my eyes out of focus, which allows me to see the shapes more clearly. I'm not focused on detail. The bank of the creek in the distance is a little bit warmer in temperature, so I added some titanium white and cadmium yellow medium. Got a darker orangish mix for some of the grasses that are sort of in shadow. For the trees in the distance here, going with a lighter value blue-green, again to create some separation and then also to push them back into the distance. And you can kind of see them through the tree here, and a little bit of that color over here as well. For the distant hills, I'm going with a mid-tone purple, and I'm definitely leaning towards red in this mix. And this will allow me to get some red into the painting. There's also some orange tones here, which is nice, but as I've mentioned before, it's always a challenge getting orange or red into a landscape because almost everything is blue or green. There's a bit of that color over here as well. For the sky, I've got a mixture of titanium white, ultramarine blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson, so it's like a very light purple. Today, the sky is the lightest value in the painting. It's interesting, I was wondering if my mid-tone greens and other colors were going to be dark enough in value, but once I put the sky in, you can see that I think the value relationship is going to be okay. And I'm focusing on maintaining the shapes. I had quite a few people walk by, and I think seeing this painting in the early stages, especially because I'm painting over an old painting, it can be kind of confusing for the average viewer. And now it's starting to look more like the scene. I've got it dark purple here for the tree trunk and some of the branches. All of the trunks are sort of leaning in this direction, but I want to kind of switch it up a bit. So I'm going to have this one be a little bit more vertical. Maybe have a branch go off like that. I feel like this one's too low now. Should be more like that. Now that I've got the whole painting blocked in, I'm noticing that the creek bed is too dark in value and there's too much red in it. I want a little bit more yellow, so I'm lightening it up. And the rest of the painting process here will just be making adjustments to colors and values and trying to maintain the design. I think it's important to have days where you paint without expectation. I think expectations, especially when you're a beginning painter, can make you unhappy with the results and also not enjoy the process. I started using days like this where the light is not ideal. Started using days like this as experimentation days where I had no expectations other than putting paint onto the panel and seeing what I could do. Eventually that approach became my day-to-day approach to painting, which made painting a lot more enjoyable. And then that resulted in me painting more often. So get out and paint without expectations, at least once in a while. The sun did come out for a moment, and then it got cloudy again. But I'm going to experiment with putting a blue sky in and maybe having a sunlight effect. I can always go back to the overcast motif if I'd like. But I am just having fun out here, so decided to change course here a little bit But the shapes are all the same. It's just the lighting and the coloring is a little different. All right, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about 2 hours to complete. It was finished on site. I was tempted to leave this painting in a very simplified state and not take it much beyond just simple shapes, but the sun came out, and so I decided to try to capture the sunlight effect, and then one thing led to another, and my usual process took over. I still did try to keep this painting fairly simple and try to maintain the original design and not break up the big shapes. One thing I did focus on was softening the tree shapes, especially where the trees meet the sky. And often I'll use a mid-tone blue to soften the edge of the trees. Another thing I did was add some warmth out on the trail in this area here to draw the eye in that direction. I did cool off the distant shore there, that sort of yellow ochreish color, compared to the yellow ochre in the foreground here. This is a bit warmer. So the idea was that it would hopefully create a sense of depth. Also, I desaturated the trees in the distance and made them a bit more blue. So hopefully they sit in the distance as well. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support. It helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.